What's happening, sports fans? We welcome you back to another episode of San Diego Prep Insider, brought to you by Palomar Insurance. Please support the people that support us, even though the Palomar Insurance is a Bishop's family, and I'm now saying that while wearing a La Jolla hat. Look, nothing's very well planned on this show, especially now that the fact that we have moved into a new era where I want to start hearing game reactions from people that aren't me, because I do my little floating head diatribes of stuff, but largely I'm from a generation of football past where I ran the I form. And I'm not out there every day, like observing real good football. So we turn to people like Scott Hughley, the juice. This juice is loose still and up and running. Scott is a longtime coach at a couple of different stops and is somebody that, as you've coached both sides of the line, offensive and defensive. Yeah. So he's a guy that observes football from the right point of view, from the thankless lineman point of view. And Scott wants to talk about a pair of games today. We got Mission Hills, Granite Hills. We got Mission Bay, UC. Which one you want to start with?
All right, we got to start with a big one. Let's start with Mission Hills, Granite Hills.
Oh, I thought you were gonna pull. I thought you were already on the comedic timing of a little switcheroo there. We got to talk about.
No, I'm gonna save that one. We're gonna save it. But
let's go to
yeah,
Mission
no,
Hills,
Mission Hills,
Granite Hills.
Granite, man.
Here, let me tee you up with saying Mission Hills gets the dub. This is a series now that they have played over the last couple of years early in the season, which I think is becoming a great, I don't know if they're full rivals yet, but this is becoming a nice little 1-2. Mission Hills wins by 10. What do you take away from that game?
Well, I think to your point, right? Early season games, and I think when you look at the way this setup is now in the playoffs, you have four teams in the open division. So if you're going to be a team that is going to be an open division team, you want to win an open division championship, you have to test yourself. So the fact that these teams are scheduling this game early on for me is just a big thing right out of the gate, right? Not being scared to play an early season team that you might face in the open playoffs or might potentially bump you out of the open playoffs. And that's the big thing to me is that this is a big early season statement for Mission Hills. Obviously, you look at the history of Granite the last few years. Mission Hills is a team that is just, they're kind of quiet up there, right? You have a guy in Troy Human who's going to Penn State, and we don't talk about him a whole lot. They get Josh Gonzalez comes in from Escondido. And I think, again, they're up there and they just kind of handle their business. The coaching staff, they're extremely well coached. You're not going to see their stats on Max Preps. So, but you're still going to be, you know what you're going to get from them every week. They're going to show up and they're a team that you have to beat and they're not going to lose. And so I think having Granite come into their building right out of the gate, getting a big win like that, I think it really just puts them on a path. Obviously, there's a lot of football to be played. LCC and Carlsbad coming up for them, Torrey coming up for them. So it's going to be a tough road. But again, if you're going to put yourself in a position to be an open champion, you have to play these types of games early on. And it's just, I think, a big statement win for me.
Give me biggest positive takeaway for both teams from this week.
Well, again, I think for Mission, it's the confidence in knowing that you've beat a team that has been in the open mix for the last few years. Again, I think they're not going to worry about confidence. Again, they have a long slate coming up. And then for Granite, again, right, it is that early challenge. And I think for me, it's always a thing where you play early, tough teams. Even if you lose, there's always positives to gain out of it. I almost treat it like you got a weight on the bat, right, in the on deck circle in these regular season games early on. And it's just making that swing when you take that bat off. It just is a lot more fluid. So, you test yourself early on in the year. They have Los Alamitos and Cathedral Catholic coming up the next couple of weeks on the road, a couple other really big games. But again, if you're Granite, you look at that and say, even if I come out of those with losses, there's going to be positives. And again, that's an experienced staff, an experienced quarterback, a lot of talent. So they're going to be okay regardless of what happens the next few weeks. But again, I think the positive for them is this is a close game. It's a tough team in Mission Hills, right? You can't really hang your head and losing a tough game as you scheduled it for a reason, right? Because you know that there's going to be positives that come out of it either way.
Yeah, I was big on the fact that it was a close game. And to me, if that's a blowout, that there's fundamentally something isn't right with the configuration of this team if we want to compete in the Open division. Because one loss doesn't necessarily like eliminate Granite from the Open. It maybe puts them like kind of perilously on the outside looking in, waiting until someone else's loses. But if you're gonna keep going with they've got Cathedral, they've got Los Alamos, like they say they roll on to finish 9-1, being only 10 points back of Mission Hills and having things like a pick six and some other like football type moments.
Yeah.
It's that's where it's like, hey, cool. Our yard marker is we are game of inches behind a team that's headed to the Open division. On to the second game you want to talk about, Mission Bay UC. Mission Bay gets a huge win. They remain undefeated at 4-0. UC 3-1 still is dangerous. And I'm almost at the point right now where this might be an incorrect way of looking at it, but under the new playoff formatting, I almost like being 9-1 slightly better than being 10-0. And here, I know that's crazy, but hear me out. I watched a couple of teams last year, like SFC pops into my mind, where they beat Bishops to win Coastal, and that should be the thing you're celebrating, but their reward for beating Bishops, winning Coastal, is going on the road in the D1 playoffs to have to take on Mount Miguel. And you're nodding and laughing because you know that the rest of the sentence is that Bishops loses that game, goes down to get a bye in a home game in the D1 playoffs or in the D2 playoffs. So this is not bad for Mission Bay. This is a yard marker win. Like, congratulations to them. But I just, that's what's in the back of my mind now is like, if there is two teams that took losses this weekend where it's like, does that really hurt them? Mission Bay, Granite Hill. So let's talk about that UC Mission Bay game then.
Yeah, no, and to your point again with the playoffs, like I remember being at Torrey Pines in 2015. We won the avocado, and our reward was being the eighth seed in the Open and going out to Cathedral Catholic. So, like again, there are, advantages sometimes to maybe not winning all the games, but again, right to your point, the playoffs are set up to do kind of a goofy way, but big win on the road for Mission Bay for me, man, and I think. I look at that program and where it has come from a few years ago, Coach Tate taking over. Their big thing is they've had buy-in, and I think the guys that are there, they have some four-year guys. Shane Brushy had two touchdowns. They have an experienced quarterback in Trey Arnold, who played a lot of, has taken a lot of snaps, and I think all four of these teams have experienced quarterbacks, and I think that's the biggest thing for me. Why this isn't such a huge thing for Granite, for UC. And why I think this is a big win for Mission Bay. I think when you have an experienced quarterback, as a coach, as a coordinator, you can say, hey, I can put a little bit more on this guy. And I think that's why this is a big win for Mission Bay. Again, that's an experienced team. They got some experienced guys. I think their schedule is set up now. I think this is a big test for them. I think the way their schedule is set up, they could be a team sitting there at the end of the year and maybe looking at a top seed again. So big road win for them. But again, you see, they're going to be tested, obviously, the last couple of weeks, few weeks of the season, being in that Eastern with Lincoln Cathedral. But again, I think they also, they have some really good top end talent over there. Tay Lockett and Quentin Demara, obviously being an experienced guy. And that's why I don't think it's a huge loss because they have some games that are winnable. Will they be able to hold up front, especially, two of their last 3 weeks being Lincoln and Cathedral when they get into the playoffs? Will they have the depth up front? That'll be a question. But again, I think the top end talent is there. They have experienced guys that have won championships. So again, you put yourself in a test early in the year, and again, you lose, but there are things to learn from it. And again, if you have experienced guys, I think there's positives, and I think the waters aren't too rocky. I think it's okay.
Yeah, that's why we bring this guy in. He's analyzing how the guys up front. He's thinking from a lineman's point of view. He's talking about survival of the big guys, not the skill players, not the position players. No, the guys up front. Yeah. Just the last kind of footnotes for me on this game is Trey Arnold now at 1,232 passing yards, and that is one of two things. That's either Tate just smashing numbers when he inputs the stats on Max Preps and being the neon cat on a keyboard, or that is no longer just a team crushing tomato cans early in the season and throwing like late in. If you're throwing late in a blowout, okay, great, you're stacking up yards. But if you're at 1,200, if you've maintained at least an average of 300 passing yards per game through the first 4 games. Like, to me, that's a sample size where it's now like, this guy is who they can rely on. Like, this is a team where if you are gonna try and beat Mission Bay, you have to not just lessen him, because lessening him is 200 yards. Like, you have to eliminate him to keep them fully like out of a game. And for University City, it's exactly rinse and repeat what we said with Granite Hills. And this is where I'm bad at, like, when I talk about all the games, I end up talking about the same damn thing over and over and over. But it's a yard marker of being like, okay, we are but only this far away. And if that's only this far away from, like, they both end up being D2 or 3 teams and UC and Mission Bay are separate. Like, I could see these teams being separated by like 8 seeds in a
Yeah.
D2 or 3 playoffs. I could also see this being, like you said, because UC ends up having those last couple of games. This is what knocks UC down to being like the 3 seed in D3. And then it's like, bam, low key, them losing to Mission Bay set them up to win a championship. And so it's like, we're 4 weeks in. These are non-league games, and yet everything has these massive implications. And it's all very confusing, and it's all hard to break down. And that's why I rely on people who are not me, because I have enough bad takes about sports. I'm not, and for any of you who watch the show over a sustained period of time, you know that I truly know nothing about. Like, I say, this team's going to be great. I say that team's going to be great, and then they all go get freaking absolutely destroyed in the playoffs. So I
That's a
rely
great thing about high school football. You have no idea what's going to
on
happen ever.
the amount
You
of
just got to show up. Whoever shows up, that's who we're
accounts
coaching.
that spend the off season going, oh, here's the top 5 sophomores to look at. Oh, here's the top 20. It's fun to talk about, but I always scroll through those articles being like, how do you know? How did what if number 16 got his first girlfriend in the off season and has now lost all interest in sports? What if the weird awkward kid who was like a not quietly, just didn't look proportionally right, is now a 6'4" left tackle and is out there wrecking kids because he hit puberty in the middle of an, like, you can make educated guesses, but the people that sit out here and pontificate about high school football, you don't know anything. None of us know anything. This is the most awesome randomized generator of every Friday night into Saturday morning. I'm just looking at those results going, this is chaos. This is awesome. So I hope in all of that Hughley will be back with us later this season. This is him testing the waters on analysis post coaching. So just be kind to him in the playoff or in the comment section, and we will say into the background, I don't know if she can hear us, but thank you, Mrs. Hughley, for letting us borrow your husband for a little bit of time. Until next time, folks, hit the subscribe button, leave comments, do whatever you're supposed to do with social media. Share this. If not, no worries. My parents can't even figure out how to watch it on YouTube, so I don't really care. Talk to you guys next time.